Good evening. I would like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting to order for Wednesday, January 14th, 2026. The time is now 7:03 p.m. Would you please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1C is the roll call of council members, and I will ask our city clerk to please call the roll.
Here. Here. Councilmember Hudson. Here. Councilmember Oliver. Here. Councilmember Tesoro.
Here.
Councilmember Vanderstoop.
Here.
Councilmember West.
Council, for item 2, I would entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Andrew and a second by Navor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Item 3 is community comments, and if there is anyone here tonight that would like to address City Council, I'd invite you to come forward to the podium and limit your comments to about 3 minutes. I will also say that tonight there is a closed record hearing. If you're here to speak on that item, actually just to wait until that item comes up on the agenda, and you can come up at that time. But for now, community comments and anyone who wants to address council on any other topics. Hello, Alicia.
Hi, Mayor Donovan, City Council. First of all, I'd like to welcome the 3 new City Council members. It's just, I really appreciate all of you in your dedication to wanting to do this job, because having been involved in committee meetings, not involved, but vicariously watching you, I see the work that you do, and I just so appreciate that you've stepped up to the plate. Oh, I'm emotional. I waited a while to come up and speak to you about this. I wanted to be able to express myself in a way where I was heard. I'm going to start with the subject is artificial intelligence. I know that recently we, or you as a body, decided that it would be a great idea to have ChatGPT do a summary of the committee meetings that you have here. And it hasn't been working, in my opinion. I can't get notes on the committee meetings. It goes back to middle of November to find out what you spoke about in a committee meeting if I haven't attended it in person myself. I think that's too long of a time period. I don't think it's working. Maybe you're getting kinks out. I don't know. But the thing about committee meetings, as you've seen here tonight, they're really important. You guys discuss so many things, and people from each of the city departments come up here and they talk about what they're doing for our city. Jennifer Berner, oh my gosh, there was one meeting here where she had some people come up and do presentations that really got to me. I mean, and I'm so proud of our city for the things that we do, but people don't know that you're doing them, which leads me to my other topic is public engagement with the city and the city with the public. It is not working. And I talk with some of you privately, and you know that. I talk with people, constituents, we know that. We've spoken about it, but it doesn't go any farther than that. I had a wonderful conversation with Mayor Donovan a year and a half ago, and I expressed some ideas that I had about how to bridge that gap, because I know there are people out here who are apathetic about the city. I was one of them, and I'm not that any longer. And I just see such a need for connection with our community, and I think we could have such a robust Mount Vernon city when the public is more engaged with you, individually and collectively. It is not happening, folks. And I want to know, basically, from the public, whoever's listening to this, both of you, I don't know who listens, I do. And I just want to know if you're interested, because I am. It's deep in my heart. And I don't know why, and I don't know where it came from, and I've stopped trying to figure it out. But I want to know if you care, if you want our input. We get messy, we disagree, but there's also so many positives that can come from it that far outweigh the negatives. Please, I don't know if it needs a committee meeting. I don't know who, I want to be involved if there is. I need direction. I don't know what to do next, and I need your help. Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. Hello, welcome.
Stick to some written stuff so I can try and go quick.
You could mention your name and city of residence.
Gavin Birch, I live up in Alger, drive through for all my groceries and other extracurriculars. So I want to direct my comment to advocate for the cancellation of the Mount Vernon contract with flock safety and call for the removal of the flock cameras and associated data streams to flock safety. The readily available public information regarding flock safety cameras in the city of Mount Vernon leads you to a transparency portal website set up for the city by Flock Safety. The address is transparency.flocksafety.com/Mount-Vernon-WA-PD. This website indicates that there are 146 cameras in the city. These cameras only collect vehicle data and license plate data, and that no access is allowed to federal law enforcement. The same webpage allows citizens to obtain a 30-day audit of the system uses. In December, I made a public records request number M00195-121-725 for the following records: locations of the flock cameras in the cities, the list of all the agencies with access to our system, the procedures law enforcement officers must comply with to use the system, and the procedures and all costs associated with the system. Between the transparency portals and the records I obtained from the city, I found the following. The city responded to me that we only have 6 Flox cameras that cost around $38,000 for initial purchase and installation. They are under a $68,000 contract over the next 2 years for service and maintenance. This contract includes 2 separate licenses for 128 data streams each. This indicates a large expense to the city, as well as 140 non-Flock cameras being integrated into this surveillance system. Additionally, I was not provided with the procedures requested regarding what law enforcement officers have to do to use the system. This means either the city hasn't decided this should be a publicly available record, or these procedures don't exist. The audit results from the last few months show reasons for accessing the system, such as, quote, investigation, warrant, agency assist, ID suspect, and increasingly just leaving the reason blank in the audit form. The audit further undercuts a commitment to transparency, as the accesses are not cross-referenced with specific investigations or who requested the access. All we get to know is that at some time, for some reason, someone accessed the system to find something. Beyond the issues I've just stated, there are further problems inherent to having a private company owning the infrastructure of a surveillance state. Make no mistake that this is a drastic increase in public surveillance that is being outsourced to a private company that isn't even based in the state of Washington. The city of Mount Vernon does not control the data that's collected. It does not control how this data is processed and what it's used for. The city of Mount Vernon doesn't even own the cameras that we're paying for. Further, while the city of Mount Vernon's police department has shown they will endeavor to safeguard our community and our data, that isn't a guarantee that they'll always be successful. This data is shared with 55 other departments in Washington. Mount Vernon PD doesn't control them, and our citizens have no recourse if they access the system for prohibited reasons. If the department's commitment to protecting us can be circumvented with a simple lie from another department, there's no real barrier to backdoor access or free use of the system. There are 93 agencies in Washington that use these cameras that share their information with us, and only 6 so far in the entire state have kept federal law enforcement out. Flock Safety's cameras and products specifically have a number of issues that indicate a disregard for data privacy and security. Issues that go against any operational philosophy to not be used to identify people. The cameras have been found to run on out-of-date and unsupported operating systems with known vulnerabilities. Cybersecurity experts have identified up to 51 means by which to gain control of these devices and their data with minimal difficulty. The cameras use radar to trigger image capture and when motion is detected. If the onboard AI identifies a license plate or vehicle, it saves the image. If not, it just saves it in a different folder instead of deleting this data. This means that people are being photographed when they move by these cameras, and it's getting saved. This might be okay if it's a doorbell camera at your house, but it's completely unacceptable in a government-run network tied to our law enforcement system. Additionally, Flock Safety as a company has lied, or at the very least misled, about the efficacy of their products as a deterrent to crime and as a tool to solve them. They have cited data from before the company existed to support their claims of dropping crime rates, and on multiple occasions, they have deliberately misrepresented crime statistics in their advertising. If, as stated last week by the chief of police, the functionality of these cameras is vital to modern law enforcement, then an alternative needs to be found wherein the city owns the infrastructure, the system is open to and responsive to feedback from the public, and all of this is run with a high degree of transparency regarding its operating procedures. And one option is a CCTV system with an independently developed and maintained algorithm to identify license plate numbers from images. It would provide all of the functionality required while allowing the key concerns around data privacy and authorized use to be addressed.
Thanks, Cam. Thank you.
Hello, I am Harrison. I also live around Alger and do my groceries and pharmacies in Mount Vernon, so I'm here fairly frequently.
Welcome.
My issue is also block cameras. In an increasingly authoritarian administration that ignores judiciary precedent, laws, and basic rights, I don't think it's wise or safe to employ a mass surveillance system. As an early example, flock cameras have already been used to track women from Texas seeking abortions in our state where the practice is legal. Even if flock data isn't intentionally shared with ICE or other oppressive organizations today, it doesn't preclude the possibility in the future. We've seen time and time again corporations bend the knee to the federal government just to avoid the complications of a lawsuit that they would likely win. If tomorrow the federal government institutes mandatory work camps for people diagnosed with ADHD, depression, autism, and a myriad of other conditions, do you feel confident that flock safety would risk their bottom line fighting the Fed if license plate data tracking people visiting psychologists is demanded? Per the American Civil Liberties Union, Flock is building a giant camera network that records people's comings and goings across the nation and then makes that data available for search by any of its law enforcement customers. Whether the Mount Vernon Police Department wants to track everyone isn't the issue, because the data isn't collected and stored in a Mount Vernon system, but is held in a third-party corporate system not directly accountable to the people. And even if the Mount Vernon Police Department is unwilling to cooperate with ICE, the fact that in multiple cities, Border Patrol was able to access data without permission from local police means the system is inherently vulnerable to misuse. Per 404 Media, the backdoor access that federal law enforcement abused in other jurisdictions was implemented at a national level, which is not something the local police will be able to defend against. The better, safer option is to stop utilizing infrastructure that isn't directly accountable to the people. So I request that the city of Mount Vernon stops using flock cameras.
Thank you, Harrison.
Hi, my name's Andrea Mesplay. I'm a resident here in Mount Vernon. I also have a written comment that I will work my way through. So I would first like to start by welcoming the 3 new city council members. I am very happy for the 3 of you, and I'm very excited to collaborate with you over the next 4 years. So thank you all for your time. So I would like to offer a wider lens with which to view public safety and harm reduction. I am a proponent of public safety. I believe all of our community members should feel safe. That extends to our immigrant, unhoused, disabled, middle class, senior, and youth community members. All deserve to feel safe. Social services do not detract from public safety, they enhance it. We do not sacrifice public safety by making sure people have a warm place to sleep at night or roof over their heads. We should be expanding our public services and not cutting funding to them. Public safety is a community destination, not a domain that only the police department is capable of achieving. While listening to the comments last week, I was struck by how Mount Vernon was being depicted as very unsafe. It was in stark contrast to how I have personally experienced Mount Vernon. So I went home to try to better understand the comments made. I expected to find crime stats that showed rising crime, high violent crime, and just an overall different picture than how Mount Vernon feels to me, based on what was the rhetoric of unsafeness surrounding last week's comments. I was genuinely surprised when I could not find any data to corroborate the comments made last week. Everything that I found, which I provided you an email at like 4:30, I'm sorry I didn't get it to you sooner, showed that over the last 5 years, crime in Mount Vernon has continued to decline. Crime in Seattle has been drastically reduced between 2024 and 2025 without increasing police force. Based on a recent report from the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Department that came out, this article from the Olympia came out on December 4th. Crime in 2024, Washington's total crime dropped 8.4% compared to the previous year. According to this report, violent crime has declined 6.4% over the same time span, including murders down 17%, robberies are down 15.6%, aggravated assault is down 4.6%, hate crimes saw a 10% decrease, property crimes plummeted 13.3% per findings, as did vehicle thefts, down 37%. That is a quote from the Sheriffs and Police Washington Association. Which brings me to the question, what is preventing crime? Again, with the information provided to you earlier, we see social services prevent crime, emergency shelters prevent crime, affordable costs of living prevent crime, substance abuse assistant prevents crime, youth services and after-school programs and libraries prevent crime. To Councilmember Damon's excellent point last week, why are we not asking for iOS funding to be fully staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, before we would even consider adding more armed officers to our streets? We know iOS works. We heard the police chief himself talk about what a successful program this has been. Why are we not fully funding it? We need to also invest in our youth and also with our community, focusing on efforts like job creation, summer camps, late night recreation spaces, youth sports, and after-school programs. As we know, teenagers might not always want to be home all the time. And yet, the parking garage that moonlights as a library is not open outside of school hours. It is fully closed on Sundays due to what I have seen through emails, it's budget cuts. The community was told there would be a teen center where kids could hang out unencumbered, and yet we are not funding to keep it open. They can't go there on the weekends, or at least on Sundays, or after 4 p.m. on Saturdays. Why would we want to put kids in possible contact with more armed officers patrolling our streets before giving them access to a library that has rooms dedicated to them? We as a community are failing these kids by denying them these public safety services. I'm now going to talk about flock cameras. I would like to thank the police chief for immediately closing the back door to flock, or the back door that flock writes into its code when new departments begin their subscription. However, we are now a year into the brutal immigration raids, and with the recent lawsuit in Cedro-Woolley, all flock footage is now public record, meaning that ICE has front door access. Any information ICE wants, we legally have to give it to them. This is not safe for our community. It is also deeply concerning from a domestic violence standpoint. Anyone can take your license plate number, request every single time your car has been pinged by those cameras over the last 30 days, and put together exactly where you go, what time, and for how long. I am asking the City Council to stop all subscriptions with Flock and end warrantless surveillance to our community. I would like the City Council and the mayor to zoom out and take a look at the actual issues facing Mount Vernon. Nonviolent crime can be reduced when we invest in our community and recognize that we have more ways to achieve public safety than retributive punishment. Let's work together to envision a future for Mount Vernon that uplifts all of our community members in the same way we did during our most recent flood emergency. Let us take the care we had and the effort that we put in to make sure every single resident of this beautiful city was safe and harness that into a better and safer Mount Vernon. Thank you.
Thanks, Andre.
Good evening, Council. My name is Callie Lowenstein. I'm a resident of Mount Vernon near Hillcrest. I am a toddler mom, sorry for the brief interruption, and a longtime public school educator, currently launching a bilingual education nonprofit. And I want to speak briefly to the flock comments that were made earlier, and then to this issue of public safety that was just spoken about, and thinking about public safety as a broader concept that we can think about starting with what do we really need, what's really missing, and what are the challenges that we want to be investing our funds in. So just to speak to the flock piece really briefly, I want to just reiterate and give a +1 to the comments that have been made so far this evening. I think it's really important that we understand the gravity of the data that we are handing over to a corporate entity that is not accountable to us as a community, and to remember that there is a service being provided, but that it comes at this cost, right? And so if we said we want to authorize our police department to have a partnership or a contract with Google to access our Gmail, I'm sure that they would solve a lot of crime. I'm sure that they would get a lot of information about kids being abducted and things like that. But we don't make that decision because it's too much data, right? It's too much access, it's too much surveillance, and the trade-off isn't worth it. That same trade-off is present in this flock contract question. And so I would also just like to urge the council to immediately end our flock contract here in Mount Vernon. The second thing I wanted to speak to briefly is this question of community safety, thinking about the funds made available by the levy lid lift. I want to reiterate my support for the progress made by the iOS program, and I would like to personally voice that the evidence that I see from across the country is that these programs work best when they are separate and alongside the police, not integrated within, for the simple reason that our most vulnerable populations often avoid contact with police, feel unsafe and uncomfortable, and even threatened by police. And so we're reducing the efficacy of the social supports that we're trying to make available by integrating it with armed agents who are present. It also increases the cost, right, of every single visit and interaction. And so I would like us to view iOS as a really powerful bridge towards a standalone program like Cahoots and some of the other programs that have been piloted really successfully across the country. More broadly, I want to echo the previous comment, urging us to think more holistically about what safety means in our community. You saw my toddler. When I think about her safety in this community, there's one or two things first and foremost that come to mind. One is cars. Her ability to move safely in our town. When I was a little kid, I walked to school every day starting in 3rd grade. I would never in a million years allow my child to walk the 5 blocks from my house to Jefferson because the cars are driving too fast. There's not enough protection for pedestrians from the roads. There are no protected bike lanes in our town, right? And so thinking about what's preventing us from moving safely and living the lives that we want to live in this community, and how do we invest in infrastructure that, again, prevents harms, not just crimes, but harms more broadly, and allows us to really live the way that we want to live and thrive in our community. More broadly, we think about climate resilience, right? The event that we just experienced with the flood, and the infrastructure that protected us, along with the amazing effort. And I want to thank Council, Mayor Donovan's leadership, and all of the community efforts that came together to keep us all safe, right? There are so many different dimensions to community safety. And a lot of it for me, when I think about my child growing up and the rest of our community, is climate resilience, making sure that we have streets that we can walk on and have tree cover, right? This is supposed to be a temperate rainforest. There are so many parts of Mount Vernon where you cannot go from a walk in the middle of the day for the entire summer because we have no trees. So thinking more broadly about where do we really need to invest, what I see is a solution in search of a problem when I think about the money that is being allocated to expanding and placing additional armed officers on the street. The question is, what are the problems that we most need to solve? And I just want to lift up that first comment and think about how can we bring community voices into what are the problems that we most need to solve? I would love to see at least quarterly, if not monthly, meetings with the city council that are at a different time that is not toddler bedtime, so that more of our community members are able to come and be a part of this conversation. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thanks, Kelly. Hello.
Not wearing my glasses. I'm sure I'm at the right place. Mayor, council, 2 people on YouTube. Thanks for having me. My name is Chuck Messenger, proud resident of Mount Vernon. Yes, no to Skynet. Yes to humans. Yes, Queen to community. I'm just here to do a quick public service announcement. Those that don't know me know I manage will know now that I manage the coordinated entry system for the county. For those that don't understand what the coordinated entry system is when people are unhoused or facing housing insecurity, they do go through my team to gain access to the resources that are available to them, whether it be shelters, transitional housing, rental assistance, eviction assistance, or eviction prevention. Yeah, we'll use that verbiage. But along with that, one of the biggest responsibilities that I have in my role is managing the point-in-time count. For those that aren't familiar with the point-in-time count, it is done federally. Every county, every jurisdiction that's seeking federal assistance for housing programs must actually go out and conduct surveys with those folks that are unhoused and experiencing housing insecurity. Every year is a challenge. Never are we going to be in a position where we're actually getting a true count of the folks that are actually unhoused in the county. But I wanted to just throw this out there to the community, to those two people on YouTube, and to you fine folks as well. It is coming up on January 29th. We do all traditionally measure on the same day. We're looking for that point in time. Where did you sleep on the night of January 29th, which is the case this year? The point in time count is done every year. Moving forward, the state of Washington has decided that the unsheltered portion of the point in time count is actually only going to occur every 2 years. So when we're talking about trying to draw federal assistance from programs like HUD and Veteran Services, the numbers that we generate this year are going to have a longer term impact when it comes to federal funding. And the way that I've been promoting it is essentially the numbers that are produced this year with our point in time count are actually going to potentially carry over into the next administration on a federal level. So one thing that we've had to be proactive rather than reactive in coordinating the event this year. Because of the recent floods, we've got more people that are displaced. We've got audiences that are not familiar with the point in time count. And in the past, we've had a tendency to just send people willy-nilly wandering through the streets and through the woods with their mud boots on, trying to find folks to capture information. This year, we're really trying to make coordinated efforts to actually have specific resource center locations where we can draw people to come and actually get access to resources that they need. This year, we'll actually have local service providers as well as potentially some state service providers that will be tabling each of these events. So not only will we have what we've acquired to date, which is tents and blankets and tarps and warm clothes and food and water, hygiene kits, first aid kits, but we'll also have other organizations that are providing crisis intervention services and case management services, as well as potentially disaster relief agencies as well. With those resource centers, Thursday the 29th, Friday the 30th, and Saturday the 31st, we will have events here in Mount Vernon. The first one will be at Skagit Station on Thursday. The second one will be at Recovery Cafe on Friday. And then the third one will be at Triumph Teen Life Center. But again, we're doing these resource events throughout the county. Again, the hope is that if we dangle a carrot and provide people what they need at the coldest time of year, we will be able to get them to come to us rather than us having to wander aimlessly trying to find them. And this really should be a community event. This is a grand opportunity to get out when completing these surveys and engaging with folks that are unsheltered, is to find out really what put them in that situation in the first place. And our community needs to do a better job of understanding exactly why folks are unsheltered here. It's not what people see at the grocery store. It's not that one guy that they experience while they're driving down the road. There's a lot of factors that weigh into the housing insecurity that we have here in the county. And little asterisks, I think elected officials would benefit from going out and doing those surveys as well. We are accepting volunteers for it. All information is at voaww.org/pitcount. My contact information is there as well. Give me a holler. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks for the work you're doing. Anyone else wishing to address council? Yeah, come on up.
Hello, my name is Jack Canfield, and I live here in Mount Vernon, just down the street, really, actually, down College Way. And everyone else has been so thorough, I honestly don't really have all that much to add. I'm here to talk about police presence and flock as well. I'm just kind of throwing in my hat. We, the people, don't really want more police. We don't want more surveillance. We don't want 1984. And that's about all. Everyone else was very thorough. I don't have anything more to add. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Anyone else? All right, we will move on in our agenda. Thank you all for coming to address council night tonight. Item 4 is tonight's consent agenda. It includes meeting minutes, payroll checks, deposits, wire transfers, claims, and a number of routine agreements. Council would like to move for adoption of the consent agenda tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Navor and a second by Andrew. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. All right, for reports, we will open it up for council member comments. Item 5A. Any council member comments this evening? Councilmember Hudson? Yeah.
Thank you. Alicia, I want you to know that I will ask my dad when I get home, because he's one of the 2 people that watch all the council meetings.
You say hi to me.
And hi, Dad. And I'm sure we will discuss this, so I will let you know. Because I'm also going to tell you that Mrs. Well, I'm going to call her Miss Beaton, and
You can call me Melissa.
I'll call her Melissa, will be scheduling our Ward 3 meeting very soon. So stay tuned for the date and time and location. But we do that often, or at least twice a year. We try to do it. So we will get that scheduled pretty darn soon. Thank you. You're welcome.
Any other council member comments? All right, we will move on to mayor's report. And as Steve brings the overhead up for one single slide, thank you, Steve.
I take longer.
Not a lot to talk about tonight, just wanted to invite all of our residents to attend Mayor's Coffee tomorrow. That is tomorrow, Thursday, January 15th at 10 a.m. We're going to be meeting at Spark, Skagit Preschool and Resource Center, and they are located inside the Carnation Building. So that's 117 North 1st Street, Suite 8, but maybe easier to see is the landmark, the Tulip Stack. Just look for the Tulip Stack and downtown. And then the Carnation Building is that yellow building there. There's parking all around it. Come on inside and you'll find us. We'll try to get some signs up and point you in the right direction. But I hope you'll take the time to show up and chat about all things city related. We get some good conversations at Mayor's Coffee. And would love to see you there. So that is all for Mayor's report today. We'll move on to new business. Thank you, Steve. Item A is the confirmation of the mayor's reappointment of a library board member. And I think Library Director Isaac Huffman will present this item tonight. Isaac.
As you may or may not know, the library has an administrative and advisory board that helps run the library. This board was established when the library was established, more than 100 years ago, and helps in the operation of the library. Key functions include setting policies and procedures for the library, as well as dealing with book challenges and many other things. We are here tonight to ask for the reappointment of Joan Gordon to the library board. She's done an excellent job serving on the library board over the past few years. She has a particular expertise in library policy and has helped us make our library policies a lot better and more accessible to the public. So with that, I ask for the reappointment of Joan Gordon.
All right. Any questions for Isaac about the process or anything like that? I don't think Joan is here tonight.
No, she will be at the mayor's office on Friday. She had a prior commitment tonight.
So we'll do the swearing in on Friday at my office.
I'll move to approve the reappointment of Joan Gordon to the library board.
Second.
By Mary and a second by, was that Denny? Second by Denny. Any discussion on this one? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, motion passes, and we thank Joan for her service. Thank you, Isaac, for that. Item B is the confirmation of the mayor's reappointment of a planning commission commissioner and development service director, Steve Sexton, as this item. Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Yes, we're here this evening for a request, confirmation of Luann Burkhart to the Planning Commission. This is, it was a relief to myself and staff when Luann, when I spoke to her, she confirmed that she wanted to continue, so that consistency is something we're looking for a little bit more in development services right now, with some changes going on. So again, we're just pleased that she is going to continue to serve the community that way in such an important way as planning the future of Mount Vernon. So with that, I request your confirmation.
Any questions for Steve?
I don't have any questions. I want to take a moment just to say thank you to Luann for volunteering again. It's a vital role. The planning commission is that more, they're not as public facing, if you will, but it is a very vital role in city planning. And so thank you. I think it might be your third term. Your second term. Probably feels like your third. Anyway, I would like to make that motion.
Motion by Melissa and a second by Navor. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, motion passes. Luann, are you ready to be sworn in right here, right now? All right.
So ready, so ready.
Small chunks are better.
Okay. We'll keep it short. All right, be raised your right hand and repeat after me. I, Luann Burkhart,
I, Luann Burkhart,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
I will support
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of the State of Washington,
of the State of Washington,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
perform and discharge
perform and discharge
the duties of Mount Vernon Planning Commissioner
the duties of Mount Vernon Planning Commission
for the city of Mount Vernon
for the city of Mount Vernon
in and for the county of Skagit,
in and for the county of Skagit,
state of Washington,
state of Washington,
according to law,
according to law,
to the best of my ability and understanding.
to the best of my ability and understanding.
Congratulations.
I see CD.
Thanks. All right, we are on to new business. Item C, it is a closed record hearing for a property rezone, and our senior planner, Marianne Manville-Ailes, will walk us through this item tonight. Welcome, Marianne.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's nice to see some new faces. I'm Mary Ann Manville-Ailes. As the Mayor said, I'm the senior planner, one of the senior planners for the city of Mount Vernon. Let me find the. Now we need the music for this.
Probably go through the quasi-judicial
Yeah, please.
disclosures. So for the record, my name is Kevin Rogerson. I'm the city attorney for the city of Mount Vernon. This is cause number PLAN 210506. The proceeding is a quasi-judicial hearing to the hearing examiner's recommendation of a request for rezone of approximately 8.3 acres from a zoning designation of P public to multifamily residential R4. The site is located at 4400 McLaughlin Road, Mount Vernon, Washington. It's also further identified by county assessor parcel numbers P137379, P137381. The applicant is Paul Woodmansey on behalf of the property owners, McLaughlin Road LLC. Members of the council and mayor, this is a closed record public hearing. The Regulatory Reform Act only allows, by operation of state law, one open public hearing where members of the public can participate. The hearing examiner in this matter has recommended approval of the applicant's request, has provided you findings of facts and conclusions of law in the record in the form of a recommendation, which stem from that open record hearing conducted by the examiner below. So tonight, your decision shall be based on the record, which was developed at that hearing, which occurred after public notice pursuant to your development regulations. No new evidence should be permitted unless it can be shown by the party offering the evidence. The evidence could not reasonably have been available at the time of the hearing before the examiner, or that relevant information that, in the opinion of the council, was improperly excluded. Comment can occur if you're a party of record from the open record hearing below, but it is restricted to argument only, and only to those parties of record. So the hearing is a function of the city council serving as a quasi-judicial role, not a legislative role. And as such, it's very important that we inquire regarding whether or not there are any grounds for disqualification of council members. So I'm going to ask a series of questions to disclose whether or not there are conflicts of interest or even the appearance of a conflict of interest. It says, because the doctrine seeks that as so far as practical, council members and the mayor, because the mayor breaks a tying vote in the case of a tie, be open-minded and objective, impartial, and free of entangling influences, or even the taint thereof. So I'm going to start with my questions. Does any member of this council or the mayor have any financial interest in the project, the property, or with the applicant or owner involved?
No.
Negative.
Hearing none. Does any member of this council or mayor have any property ownership interests or personal, family, or business interests directly affected by the outcome of this proceeding, the rezone of these parcels?
No.
Does any member of the council or mayor live or own property in close proximity of the area subject to the rezone, and close proximity as defined by case law of right around 300 feet?
No.
Does any member of this council or the mayor know whether or not their employer has a financial interest in the project, the rezone, or in any outcome of this proceeding?
No.
Does any member of this council or mayor have any special knowledge about the substance or the merits of the proceeding which would or cause them to prejudge the outcome of the proceeding without listening to the arguments or reviewing the record?
No.
Have the council members been contacted outside the record on this project by either a proponent or opponent with respect to the proposal?
Yes.
Yes.
Should we,
Okay.
should we say
So-
email?
If
But
so,
no response.
if you can please disclose the substance of that communication and the name of the contacts.
How about I just abstain from the vote instead?
You can always disqualify yourself if you elect, and that would require under the appearance of fairness that you would have to remove yourself from the room during the hearing.
Yeah, that's fine.
But you can also disclose the substance of the communication, which provides an opportunity of all the parties of record to listen to it and rebut it if you so desire.
I can just
Up to you.
go. That's fine. You guys
gotta
just
come
want to
back.
call me back after?
Yep, come back.
This is the last thing?
No.
Now we're coming back for legislative acts.
I promise I'll come back and get you.
Give me a second here.
Were there others?
Well,
Yeah,
we've
so-
received emails.
Yes, we
from-
received emails. I
from
have not
people that
responded.
are- But
Okay, good.
Yeah.
If you could just disclose the nature of the emails and the substance of the record.
I read something about it was about the project, and then that was it. I didn't
A description
respond.
of the project.
Yeah, I didn't respond.
Was there any further information any council member received, any communication?
mostly, they weren't in favor of it, but I didn't respond to any of them. I could probably find you a list, but, because they're all in my email still, but I haven't deleted any, but.
I
there
believe
were-
we all received
Yeah,
the same email.
yeah.
I don't think I did.
Has it been made available to staff?
No.
Okay. So if you could just disclose the substance of the conclusion of why they weren't in favor of it, so we can put it on the record.
Two of them were, one was the flood controls and how that would impact their surrounding neighborhoods. And the other was traffic concurrency and how it would impact the road and the streets and the neighborhoods.
Okay. Has there been any other communications outside the record of a substance different from those two concerns?
No, don't believe so.
Kevin, I had an inquiry about someone who just wanted to know how to provide comment tonight.
Sure.
That was an exchange.
Okay. Do you feel these contacts would prevent you from deciding the case on the record?
No.
Is there a member of this council who believes that he or she cannot sit and hear this matter fairly and impartially, both as to the respective positions of the proponents and the opponents of the requested zone change?
Apparently, there's one.
He's gone.
At this point, I'm going to open it up. Is there any party of record, because of the appearance of fairness doctrine, who wants to make a motion to disqualify any of these council members? If so, please identify the council member, state the reason or reasons why you believe the council member should be disqualified. Hearing none. Okay, so I am done with my disclosures. All the legal stuff is mostly done. And I will invite the mayor and staff to move forward with the hearing and invite staff to
Awesome.
begin their presentation.
Thanks, Marianne.
Kevin stole a lot of my thunder, so but you have to bear with. So tonight, our request is for the council to hold a closed record public hearing and make a motion to accept the hearing examiner's recommendation and authorize the mayor to sign the accompanying ordinance approving the McLaughlin Road rezone. The property where the rezone is requested is 4400 McLaughlin Road. And the recommendation, staff recommends that after holding the closed record hearing, council make a motion accepting the hearing examiner's recommendation and authorize the mayor to sign the accompanying ordinance approving the McLaughlin Road rezone request, which is file number PLAN 210506. And I emphasize 21 because this is the oldest project in the planning department right now. So we are really, really excited to get it off of our books. So the background. The proposal is for a site-specific rezone to bring the property into compliance with its existing comprehensive plan designation. This project is somewhat unique, so I'm going to give you some context to help you understand this process. Some of you have seen this slide before, but those of you that are new have not. So this is the regulatory context for how we operate in the planning department or the development services. There are three different approval processes for things that we work on: the administrative, which is the top of the pyramid; the quasi-judicial, which is the middle of the pyramid; and legislative. Administrative approvals are our day-to-day approvals, the things that we process every day in our department. Things like building permits, site plans, short plats, boundary line adjustments, sign and fence permits. The approval for these permits is by our director. Then as we move down the pyramid, begin into the middle part, into the quasi-judicial approvals, and Kevin talked a little bit about those. And those are the approvals that require someone other than the planning director to make the decision, the approval decision, typically the hearing examiner or city council. These are things like conditional use permits, preliminary plats, variances, larger master plans, and site-specific rezones. This process includes a public hearing, and typically that's before the hearing examiner. And for some of the permits, the hearing examiner is the final decision maker. And for other permits, it's city council. The hearing examiner makes a recommendation to council, and then council is the final decision maker. And finally, at the bottom of the pyramid are the legislative approvals. These approvals are where council makes the final decision. It's things like when we create or amend our zoning or development regulations, when we create or amend our comprehensive plan, and actually just to put it in context, when you do your budget. Those are all legislative items. The public hearings for the planning work is often held at the planning commission, but it can also be held at the city council, and the council makes the final decision on that. So that's just a kind of a bird's eye view of the regulatory context that we operate under. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how comprehensive plan designations and rezones work. So in this case, in 2020, this city council approved a redesignation for the property. It was in December of 2020, and it was ordinance 3823. There are two state laws, RCW 3670A 0403 and 3670A 120 one, that require development regulations to be consistent with and implement the comprehensive plan. In this case, the rezone request is considered a development regulation. So typically, a rezone, we do a comprehensive plan amendment, and right after that, we would come behind it with the rezone request. That didn't happen in this case for a couple of reasons. There was a requirement in the council's approval of the comprehensive plan redesignation request that the property be subdivided so that we wouldn't create a split zoned parcel. When the applicant applied for the rezone and the short plat, it became clear that there was a great, that the property was challenged by critical areas. And it took us several years working with the various state and federal agencies to work through all of the critical area issues that were associated with that. And we finally were able to do that early last year, and they were able to then finally complete the short plat, and we got that recorded in September, and then started this process for the rezone back up. So there was a large gap of time that honestly we've never seen before on any other comprehensive plan designation and rezone. So that's just, this is not usual. This is very unusual. So again, the purpose of this rezone is to bring the zoning into compliance with the comprehensive plan designation as required by state law. So the comprehensive plan designation for this property is medium-high density multifamily. That comprehensive plan designation is associated with zoning designations of either R3 or R4. In order to be consistent with and implement the comprehensive plan as required by the state law, the city can rezone the property as either R3 or R4. Anything else would not be consistent with the comprehensive plan and would therefore not be consistent with the state law. This is the last context slide, and then we'll talk about the project. So the last thing we're going to talk about is the relationship between a rezone and site-specific development. So the purpose of a rezone is to apply a use designation to a piece of property, or sometimes we do it to entire areas. That designation allows the property, all the property, to be considered for any use that's allowed in that zoning district. It does not lock in any specific use. So in the R3 and the R4 districts, the allowed uses are the same. Two-family and townhouse dwelling units, multifamily residential development, municipal parks and playgrounds, professional offices such as medical and dental offices, specialized housing for the elderly, and day nurseries. The R4 district has a higher density allowance, so more of the residential units could be built, but the types of the uses allowed are the same for both districts. There's been a lot of speculation, a lot of discussion about multifamily residential being built on the property. Until the city has an application for a site-specific development and it is approved, any of those allowed uses could happen on that property. The current owner could sell the property next week, and we could have something totally different proposed from what they are currently thinking. Now we move down to the site-specific development. When an applicant turns in an application, or a property owner turns in an application for a site-specific development, it is required to comply with all of the city's development regulations to be approved. They turn in a detailed application and must meet all the city requirements for stormwater management, floodplain development, critical areas, traffic concurrency, fire requirements, zoning, building code, and any other regulations that would be relevant to the proposal. When we get that application, it's a detailed application that shows how it complies with all of those regulations. So then all of the relevant departments look at that application, they review it carefully, and make sure that it does in fact comply with all of the city requirements. When we look at a rezone, we cannot do that with that detailed review because we don't have the detail to look at it. We do a high level review of it, and we are often able to identify areas that will need additional review during a site-specific review. But they are very different things. All right, now we get to move into something that is more fun. And I apologize, this looked a lot better. Well, it looks a lot better on your screen than it does on mine, so maybe I don't have to apologize. So you can see where the site is located. It's on the very, very eastern edge of the city. There is if you look, you can see that there's a dash line. I can't even draw it for you on here because I can't, well, there it is. You come down. This is the city limits all along here. It runs along the top. It runs along the side of this one. It comes down here, and then down there. So that is the city limits for the city of Mount Vernon. So this is really on the very, very eastern edge of the city. This is College Way down here, Martin Road, McLaughlin Road. Then we have our zoning and our comprehensive plan designation. Today, right now, the zoning public right here, you see that. And you see the comprehensive plan, medium high density multifamily, not consistent. There's a short plat we talked about that was done. This is lot 2 of that short plat, track C and track B. It's these 3 pieces. An aerial photo, you can see the aerial photo of the area. So the proposal is to redesignate 8.3 acres of property currently designated as lot 2 and track B of Mount Vernon short plat PLAN 25030. Currently zoned public. It's proposed to be zoned multifamily residential R4 to be consistent with its comprehensive plan designation. The hearing examiner held a hearing on October 30th, 2025, and recommended approval on December 12th, 2025. The applicant has satisfied the rezone criteria outlined within the Mount Vernon Municipal Code and has completed the procedural requirements for rezones. The project has completed the required public process up to this closed record hearing, and the hearing examiner has recommended approval of the request. The hearing examiner's decision is included as an attachment to the account. That's all I have for you. If you have questions for me, I'm happy to address them. Okay.
Questions for Mary Ann about this? And it can be process or anything else. Okay. You have the right to ask more questions later. We're going to open the closed record hearing at this point then. And anyone who is already a party of record is invited to come up to the podium and give comments. Hello. Welcome. If you could please state your name and city of residence.
Mayor Donovan and City Council members, good evening. My name is Norm Barber. My wife and I live at 3811 Autumn Way in Somerset Estates, built along McLaughlin Road. I'm also speaking on behalf of my neighbors at their request, and a number of them are here with me tonight. After spending over 30 years in risk management, including partner level positions at Anderson, Protiviti, and Microsoft, one lesson I've learned is that risk can rarely be eliminated, but it can be minimized. In regard to the excerpt of the public record you've been provided, and I believe you should have 3 pages available to you, and thank you for your executive assistant for her help. So if you look at the first page, line 23, hearing examiner Phil Obrecht identifies the inherent risk of this site, and I quote, "One major point against the higher density zoning is that the rezone area is in a mapped flood hazard area." On the second page, Line 3, he further notes, and I quote again, a potentially more compelling argument against the higher density rezone is that density should be minimized in flood hazard areas to minimize the number of dwellings that could be affected by the flooding. While the recommendation before you may appear to be cut and dried, Examiner Olbrechts offers an alternative for you to consider on line 5. Quote, if the council has any doubts as to the effectiveness of these regulations, and here referring to the municipal code, it may wish to consider adopting the R3 zone instead of the R4 zone to minimize potential damage. Now, as to potential damage, on December 12th, we all know flooding was severe, and it was severe at this site. The Skagit River, in a setting a new record height, caused flood water on this site to rise to a point only 130 feet from McLaughlin Road itself. And Fire Chief Harris told us in this chamber last week, flooding in general could have been even worse. Now, turning to the third page in the excerpt, marked as Exhibit 10, you'll see that 2.5 acres of landfill will be used to elevate buildings above estimated flood levels. While buildings can be raised, existing roads and the city's existing stormwater system cannot be mitigated by landfill. In December, storm drains backed up onto roads. McLaughlin Road, a long dead-end road shared with Skagit County, did flood. McLaughlin Road is the only access to and from this site. We still rely on FEMA flood insurance rate maps that took effect over 41 years ago to anticipate where to apply flood mitigation such as landfill. As a result, we are concerned about the increased flood risk to our future neighbors, particularly those relying on affordable housing, and concerned about safety risks to emergency personnel like the young firefighter who knocked on our door during the evacuation to check on us. That was a very sobering experience. We respectfully urge the City Council to consider Examiner Olbrecht's alternative to minimize risks and to amend Section 3 of the ordinance to rezone the property at the lower density R3 to align with the comprehensive plan designation of medium high density multifamily for this site as required by law. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Barber.
Thank you.
Doesn't look like there's anyone else who wants to speak, or maybe that can speak. Okay. We will close the closed record hearing at that point then. Okay.
Okay, so I just have a couple things that I want to tell you. You know, the hearing examiner did in fact give an alternative, and that is an alternative that the city council has. I do want to full disclosure so that you know, as you're well aware, we are right now working on our update to the comprehensive plan, and we will be updating the development regulations to go with it. We have every reason right now to believe that we will be taking right now we have the 2 multifamily zones, that we will be eliminating those and rolling them into just 1 multifamily zone. So while you could change this to R3, when we finished with the comprehensive plan process and our development regulations, that will not, in all likelihood, that will not exist. We will only have 1 multifamily zone that will be available in the city. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that and know that yes, you could do that, but I don't know that the benefit of doing that in the long run, because there are going to be changes that are going to be made. The other thing that I wanted just to point out to you is we talked about this, you know, about the site specific versus the comprehensive plan or the rezone level zoning, because the property just to the west does have a development proposal on it right now. There's the development proposal for a church on it. So when the applicant was doing that, was putting that application together, they did a, what we call a no-rise flood study. So they came in and they looked at, what would happen if you filled the property, what the impact that would have on flooding. And because they were doing that study, and those studies are quite expensive, and the owner owned both pieces of property, they did the no-rise study for both pieces of property. So they did do a no-rise study to show what the impacts would be if they fully filled both pieces of property. And the results of that study were that there would be negligible amounts of flooding in that area. And those, they did 2 of those studies, and those studies are attached to your council packet. So we did look more at the flooding for this area than we typically would do for a rezone, because the property owner and applicant had prepared that flood study. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, so that might help in any decision-making you have. Do you have any questions for me about any of that?
Thanks, Mary Ann. Council, so the zone consolidation is something that's been talked about a lot at the staff level, at maybe planning commission level, just as our code in the city of Mount Vernon is sort of unique in that it is so complex. There are so many levels of zoning that's been one of the things that's been identified, that through this comp plan, there would be that consolidation. Questions for Mary Ann? Yeah, Councilmember Hudson.
So what you're saying is that the R3 and R4 would merge into and be R4?
It would just merge, I don't know, it could
It would be
QRP.
RLMNOP. Okay, I got you. So,
I don't know what it would
okay, I just
call.
wanted to try to understand
Yeah.
what you meant by that.
Yes.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So, and you're saying if somebody does come along and purchase this property, that they will have to go through all of and do a new updated study, because the last study was done in 2020, of like the floodplains and the traffic and concurrency. All that would need to be updated and done before they could even go any further with this property, correct?
Yes, but there are some studies that don't expire, some that do. So for example, traffic concurrency, absolutely. They would have to do new traffic concurrency, because we did traffic concurrency on, something that we said, there's about this much area, and at a maximum, we could get about this much on it, and that would generate this much traffic, and what would that do? And that's what you do at a rezone level. But for a site specific, they're gonna say, we're gonna have this, and then it's gonna generate this many cars in the PM peak, it's gonna generate this many cars during the average, and the city has a traffic consultant that we use that does that traffic concurrency, and then we'll say, based on all of that information, these are the improvements that need to be made to the frontage. These are the improvements that need to be made further out.
Can I ask one more?
Yeah.
And just to be completely clear, we are not ruling on any specific project. This is just legal work. This is the zoning only. It has nothing to do with any project.
That's
At
correct.
all.
This will change the zoning from public to whichever R you choose. And then
Right.
that list of all the things that I read to you,
Right.
though, any of those would be available to be developed on that piece of property. Who knows? We see strange things happen every day.
Council Ordinance 3933 is a recommendation to uphold the hearing examiner's findings and decision. So as written, that's what it would do, and that is what you will be voting on tonight. If there are any other questions, though, now is the time to get those out before a motion. Yeah, Melissa.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say, I want to thank the 4 members of the public who testified, and then Mr. Barber, who spoke tonight. your concerns are very real. I believe that they are, well, they're certainly my concerns as well. I even was looking at Marianne's image and in the PowerPoint, and there's just a lot of water. But we're here because we received a rezone application, and that is the focus of this hearing here. And absent any real mistake, like misapplying the law or not, evidence that isn't supported in the hearing examiner's decision, I believe we are to affirm that. So really what we're talking about is whether we want to designate R3 or R4. And at the very top of my page here, I had written notes over the weekend that said way too many zones. And I don't know. I guess what I'm wondering is okay, let's just say we err on the side of caution and we go with an R3. What does that do? Is that going to prolong any? Nothing's been submitted at this point in time. I understand that, and they could sell the property, but I'm just, I'm just thinking out loud here what that does to any potential project that may be submitted next month, but we don't wrap up the housing piece of our comp plan until 7, 8, 9 months later. That's just the only thing that I'm just.
Yeah, so until the zoning changes, that would be the zoning. So if the property owner would be in a big hurry and choose to put in a multifamily development at that point, that would be the number of units that they could get. The zone changes, they could add more. When if they wanted to wait, if they're not in a big hurry, then and the zoning changes, then they would be subject to the new zoning that they would be under.
I also think it's important to mention that the city has a very, very robust shoreline master plan. And I do know that we have had developers come before us before and talk about how robust it is, and that our neighbors to the north don't have, that their restrictions aren't as strict as ours. And so they also don't have 26 streams in their city. We have quite a few more.
And I do want to mention that this project is not subject to shoreline, so.
Not at all. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
this one doesn't fall under shorelines. It's the floodplain that is the floodplain and and wetlands that are the big issue on this. But like I said, we did work with the Army Corps of Engineers and with the Department of Ecology, and actually on this one with EPA, on get all of the wetland issues resolved on this piece of property.
Floodplain, wetland, shoreline.
I know it's
all
so
water.
much.
So much.
Traffic.
of it,
I know.
yeah.
I don't want to scare our new council people. So let's keep some of that stuff till
Too
another
late.
meeting. Okay.
Too late.
It's out in the open.
So as the hearing examiner put in their report, you have what's called an overlay zone. If you're in a floodplain, we have a body of law on how you develop, and that's actually given to us by the federal government through FEMA. It says these are the minimum standards you have to build, either commercial or residential, in order to build in a floodplain and be able to get flood insurance and be eligible under the National Flood Insurance Program.
Councilmember West.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've reviewed the hearing examiner's report and specifically finding of fact 5 Charlie. While I understand the community's anxiety regarding the 2021 flood, the examiner found that the hydraulic rise analysis in the record shows this specific project will have negligible impact on flood levels. As this is a closed record hearing, I'm bound by those technical findings. Therefore, I will be voting yes to maintain consistency with our comprehensive plan.
Okay. With that, Councilmember West, was that a motion or just an indication of support?
A motion, please.
Okay.
I'll second.
Been moved by Councilmember West, seconded by Councilmember Tercero. Is there any more discussion on this item? Okay. All those in favor of approving ordinance 3933 as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. And motion passes. Thank you, Mary Ann,
Thank
for
you,
your help
council.
with
Thank
this.
you, Mayor.
Could somebody please get Councilmember Vanderstoop out of timeout? All good.
Oh, sorry. Turning for the next one.
I thought he went that way.
I know, I thought I was.
Isaac went that way.
Isaac went to get him.
Oh, I thought he was done.
Who's on first?
I'm terrible at hide and seek. Hopefully he didn't go far.
I hope not.
Yeah.
What you get for bailing out.
All right, we are moving on to new business item D. It is an agreement with the Washington State Department of Ecology, and City Utility Manager Blaine Chesterfield has this item, I believe. Yeah, there he is. Hey, Blaine, come on up.
Take a nap? Did you take a nap?
As long as we're talking about water. I did want to make one correction to the subject line here before we start for the record. So it should say FY 2025-27 on the subject line, and in the agreement number, instead of the 23-25, it should say 25-27 there. And instead of 74, it should say 208 at the end. So I just wanted to make those corrections before I started for the record.
Thanks, Blaine.
Staff requests that the council authorize the mayor to sign funding year 25-27 water quality stormwater capacity grant agreement. Execution of the agreement with the State Department of Ecology is required to use the $120,000 of grant funds, which has been awarded to the city for implementation of the city's National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Phase 2 Municipal Stormwater Permit. The city is required to implement the MPDS permit whether Ecology provides funding or not. Once the agreement is fully signed, any eligible costs incurred between July 1st, 2025 and March 31st, 2027 may be reimbursed to the city. Approval of the grant agreement is recommended and is an important step for the continued implementation of the city's MPDS municipal stormwater permit.
All right, questions for Blaine on this item?
Congrats on the grant.
It's a little bigger than usual. Usually it's
Yes,
about
it is.
75, 50 to 75, and we've got 120 this time, so.
We'll take it.
Nice job.
I'll move to approve the grant agreement.
Second. Motion by Mary and a second by DeVore. Any
Pick a name,
discussion?
any name.
Why, who was
I
it?
said, pick a name, any
Oh,
name.
okay, I thought I heard a bunch of voices.
No.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Thanks.
Thank you,
Blaine.
Mayor, Council.
Item E is an ordinance for public safety sales tax. City Attorney Kevin Rogerson will introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. You are now in a purely legislative role for the rest of the council.
Yay.
This is before you ordinance 3934, an ordinance imposing a sales and use tax of 0.1% for criminal justice purposes, as authorized in Section 201, Chapter 350, Laws of Washington, 2025. Well, it's not as an RCW is because this law was just passed, so it's still a session law. We haven't codified it yet in particular RCW. To the best of my knowledge, I looked at it a week ago. So as I just stated, during the 2025 legislative session, in gross substitute House Bill 2015 expanded funding for public safety in Washington by creating two new sources of funding. Councilmatic 0.1%. Councilmatic is just a fancy word, is that you don't need to go out to a vote. You can take the tax if you so choose. And a grant program that law enforcement can apply for funding for criminal justice purposes. If you adopt the tax, it still has to be used for criminal justice purposes. The new sales and use tax can be used for a broad range of public safety purposes. This includes law enforcement. It includes programs to abate or mitigate domestic violence. It includes funding public defenders, programs that help reduce the number of people interacting with the criminal justice system. You have two diversion courts, a community court and a drug court in your misdemeanor court systems, and other related purposes. Certainly iOS would be one as well. The ordinance imposes a 0.1% sales tax for criminal justice purposes within the city of Mount Vernon. The revenue raised by the new sales and use tax will lessen the impacts of the city's continuing mismatch of declining revenues being outpaced by increasing expenses, which is driving the general fund deficit as described by your finance director during last budget session. There are some statistics here in your recitals and in the memo of how mismatched that is when you look at consumer price index raises and how much revenues you are authorized to raise in property tax given the 1% cap and other revenue generating sources, and how that is a trend in the wrong direction. So to implement this tax under this new body of law, the city must deliver to the Department of Revenue an ordinance imposing the tax and attesting that the city's police department meets the requirements of the legislation establishing the tax. That's in section 1 of the ordinance. It's a laundry list of everything that PD had to do in terms of training and policies that you need to do, and you'll attest to that before you have been given the authority to take the tax. Police department has completed that training and is in full compliance with the requirements. And before you is ordinance 3934, which adopted, which will take a majority of the whole of the council voting affirmatively would impose a sales tax.
All right. Any questions for Kevin on this? Comments?
And our police chief is present if you have any questions for him.
Councilmember Beaton.
I just wanted to confirm we will be using this for public defense.
Yeah, so we discussed that back in budget session, and this is sort of a response, our response, and being able to keep up with Washington State Supreme Court, which has adopted new public defense standards effective this year that really significantly reduce the annual caseloads that attorneys representing people accused of breaking laws in Mount Vernon have. So fewer caseloads per attorney equals more attorneys that the city of Mount Vernon has to hire. And this, of course, is in spite of the fact that the city of Mount Vernon has worked for the better part of the last decade to provide pretty high level and set up the bar and outpace much of the nation in our commitment to public defense. State Supreme Court said that doesn't matter. Thank you, but that doesn't matter. You need to hire more attorneys. And so really it's a decision that is crippling a lot of cities. As I talk to cities around the state, the mayors around the state, wondering how in the world they're going to keep up with these standards, it's a big deal. And so this is a small step toward helping to offset that. Other questions, comments for Kevin? Yeah.
So the grant funding and the tax are going to public defense?
This is just for the sales tax, and we haven't talked at this point about the grant. Yeah.
With that, I'll make a motion.
Please, Melissa. I'll
Oh.
second you, though.
Okay, I'll make a motion that council pass ordinance 3934.
Motion by Councilmember Beaton, and the second was by Councilmember Vanderstoep first. Discussion? We'll let you third it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Thanks, Kevin.
Welcome.
Item F. It's that time of year, the election of a mayor pro tem.
As the esteemed mayor has indicated, it's that time of year, and you're organized under the Mount Vernon Municipal Code, which requires you after every general election, you need to appoint amongst your body one council person to function as the mayor pro tempore, which is a fancy Latin term because lawyers like to speak Latin to make it sound like we've gotten our education worth, but it's basically you're the substitute mayor. You have all the powers of the mayor, and you will also be entitled to vote as a council person, and this would be triggered upon the mayor's inability to perform the functions of the mayor's office. All of this is set forth in Mount Vernon Municipal Code 208040. So this mayor pro tempore would be appointed for a year, and then the next general election, we would be back at here seeking a reappointment or a new appointment of a mayor pro tempore.
With that, questions about process or?
No.
Yeah.
I'd like to nominate
Okay, I will accept nominations. Councilmember Tessera.
Councilperson Hudson.
Thank you.
All right. We have a nomination for Councilmember Hudson.
think we're good.
I do too. It's like, we don't think
I'll
we're
wait for a second and then we can.
Second.
Okay,
Second.
and a second.
I
Any
did
discussion
have
on
a
this one?
question, though.
Yeah.
Do you get his salary if he's gone?
Yeah.
You don't want it?
so moved, right?
No?
No.
That.
Just the honor of serving
Yeah.
The
the
honor of
executive
serving.
substitute.
We should amend that. Anyways.
Fair
Funny-
question.
Funny guy.
Any other discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes.
Thank you very much,
Congratulations.
fellow
Mary.
council
Congratulations.
members.
With that, I will ask our city attorney if he wants to keep this party going in executive session.
I do not.
All right. And with that, we will adjourn this meeting for Wednesday, January 14th, 2026 at 8:28 PM.